Hi, I'm Captain Steve Chaconis, and today we've got cloudy skies, we've got choppy water, and we've got stained water, and we're going to be fishing over a grass flat. So I like to talk about the 4 C's of spinnerbait fishing. Today you're going to find out what they are and how I use them. So we'll get out here and see what we can do with a spinnerbait here on the lake.
Water, there's one right there. When you're fishing muddy water, they want to get something to eat. So a lot of people ask, when do you use a spinnerbait? I say anytime that you have cloudy skies, chop on the water, cloudy water, and you're close to the fish. I call them the 4 C's of spinnerbaits. That's cloudy skies, chop on the water, cloudy water, and close to the fish. When I say close to the fish, I'm not going to fish a spinnerbait in these conditions very deep because the water's so stained. You got like 3 to 5 feet is the range that I'll throw a spinnerbait. Right now, I'm throwing it over some submerged grass and just a real slow retrieve. And the spinnerbait that I'm using basically 2. I'm using a 1/4 ounce and a 3/8 ounce. And I'm using the old Hank Parker Classic combination. It's the Colorado, Indiana combination. I like the nickel and the gold. I like the gold in the back, and I like the nickel up front, and of course a white skirt. What the blades do is create vibration, and the fish can, if you're moving it real slow, the fish can home in on that. And that's part of what gets them. But the other thing is the vibration goes down the shaft of the spinnerbait and makes the skirt dance around. So you end up with the skirt moving around, a lot of visual activity in addition to the vibration and flashing of the blades. Gold seems to do better in cloudy water. I like the combination, gold and nickel. I will use double gold when the water's really muddy. And I basically just slow rolling it, touching the grass, snapping it out of the grass, using my forward scan only to tell me where the grass is. I'm not looking for fish with this thing. I'm just looking to see where is the grass, where's the edge of the grass, where the clumps of grass, how deep is the grass. Like here, it looks like it's about 3 feet down, so my spinnerbait is going right on the top of that grass. I try to slow it down so I hit the grass, then I'll snap it free. And that's part of throwing a spinnerbait is making it deflect. And deflection is like snapping it out of grass or bouncing it off of wood. You can impart a deflection by just every once in a while popping it. Now, what I also do is when I make a cast, I will give it a little bit of a snap once I start retrieving it, and that gets the skirt off of the shaft of the spinnerbait so that it'll actually move around and won't get tangled up and mess up the action of the spinnerbait. And that's why it's also important to keep them tuned. Otherwise, they'll run kind of like tipped over to the side, and you don't really want that. One of the keys to fishing grass is be able to feel that grass and learn what your bait feels like. I think I learned that from Woo Dave's. Woo was always like saying, know what your bait feels like. If it's heavier, it's gained weight, then learn what that feels like, because that's either going to be a fish or it's going to be grass or something like that. And you better learn how to feel what that is, because if you don't, then you just be pulling in a wad of grass. Like I've got grass on there now, so I'm trying to snap it off. So what I do is I kind of like let it hesitate in the water column and give it a quick little snap, trying to snap the grass off. And I also try to keep the bait up a little bit in the water column. I want the light to be able to reach those blades in this condition, where I want them to see the flash. Now, if I'm throwing it and bumping it up against cover, like wood, that's a little different. I want it to bump the cover however deep it is. But when I'm fishing grass, I want them to kind of see the bait a little bit. And the way they're going to see that is if there's light reflecting off of the blades. So I keep it up a little bit higher in the water column when I'm fishing over the tops of grass like I am now. And these blades thump. They also cause lift. So you're not able to fish them really fast or fish them very deep. I don't want to go very deep, and I certainly don't want to go fast. When the water's stained like this, I want to go slow, give these fish a chance to find it. Now, if the water's clear, then I'll go faster, but I'll change the blade combinations. And you really need to understand what each of the blades will do for you. The willow leaf is long and slender, and it has a tendency to go faster. It has a larger surface area, so it provides a lot of flash. I usually like those in nickel because I'm retrieving it faster and I'm fishing it in more light usually. And it's a great blade to use when you're going for speed. You want a little bit less speed, a little more thump, you go to the Indiana. And when you want the most thump and the slowest speed, you go to a Colorado. And that'll provide a lot of thumping, a lot of vibration for you. As far as rods go, I tell you, you can't go wrong with rods designed by Kevin Van Dam. I mean, the guy really knew what he was doing. Every rod that I have, whether it's for square bills or crankbaits or for spinnerbaits, that Kevin Van Dam has designed is perfect. I mean, the actions are perfect. They allow for good casts, good hook sets, also allowing the fish to suck a bait in and not yank it out of their face too fast. It's the perfect combination, and a lot of his rods are composite rods. So they're a little bit of fiberglass, a little bit of graphite. So the graphite is for the sensitivity, and the fiberglass gives you the little bit of flex that you need to get fish to suck that bait in a little bit deeper. Again, I'm keeping this up. We're only in about 2 feet of water here, and I've got a pretty good, we got water coming in, and it's kind of flowing over a little sandbar, and I'm throwing just to the edge of that sandbar where I think the fish are probably stacked up in there looking for food to come over the top. You could use just about any bait you want, but the spinnerbait under these conditions, again, we've got to chop on the water. That cuts down on the light penetration, so the fish don't get a really good look at this. Because, I mean, if they get a good look at it, they'll go like, well, what the heck is that thing? Got a wire and all this. So you get a little bit of chop on the water, cuts down on the light penetration. And you also are able to use these blades, and the skirt, the white skirt, tends to show up better in the muddier water when it has a little bit of light reflected on it from these gold blades. There's one right there. When you're fishing muddy water, they want to get something to eat, and they don't hesitate. When they get a chance to hammer a bait, they'll do it. Not a very big one, but I think we're getting the point across about how to use these spinner baits. Also, you want to tune these baits after you use them. You can see this one's a little bit out of kilter there from just that little fish. So you want to line up the bottom of the hook with the upper arm of the bait and twist it till they're in line. You also want to make sure that the line tie and the hook point are in the straight line too, because when you set the hook, you want the force to be that way and not up or down. That way you get a better hook set into these fish. A lot of guys overlook that part when they're tuning a spinnerbait. I'm fishing grass primarily because that's what we have a lot of over here right now. But wood is, when it's these same kind of conditions, especially muddy water, fish will hold tight to cover. They'll hold tight to cover. And in this case, they're going to be in the grass, but they will come up because they know their food is moving around, and they're feeding up. They're looking up above them to see what's going over their heads. And the bait fish are moving around because there's no spotlight on them, and the water's kind of cloudy, so they're able to move around and not worried about getting eaten too much. But something like a target like this spinnerbait is going to create a larger profile and a larger presence in the water with the vibration and the skirt moving around. The muddier the water, the bigger the spinnerbait I like to throw again, because it's going to give a bigger presence in the water. When the water's, there's one right there. Oh, that's a better fish. Yeah, we'll get this guy in here. you've got to be ready on a spinnerbait, because a lot of times they'll hit as soon as it hits the water. I got that one in the water and turned the handle 2 times, and then boom, there he was. All right, that's a better fish. He came right out of that grass. This is a little bit of a coontail grass down there, but nice post pond fish. A little bit of scales missing. Again, tuning the spinnerbait. The only problem with these Hank Parker Classics is that the wire is so thin that when you bend them back a few dozen times, you're going to end up with a broken spinnerbait. And you just have to know that. And the blades usually will come off when you make a cast. There's another one. They'll come off when you make the cast, or they'll come off when the fish jumps and shakes. They'll shake, and that wire's so brittle it'll break. Oh, another little guy here. Well, that's all right. We'll wade through a few of these to get the bigger fish. That's a baby fish. Hi there. But catch, a lot of guys are afraid to throw a spinnerbait, mainly because they only have one. They got their favorite spinnerbait, and it's usually a bait that's got a Colorado and a willow. That's the most popular spinnerbait sold. If you go on the shelves, you'll see that's what they have the most of. The guy who really changed spinnerbait fishing for me, I kind of learned a little bit here and there from a whole bunch of different guys, but Alan McGuckin was with Terminator, and they made spinnerbaits, and on the back of the package, he would tell you what spinnerbait is appropriate for what condition. And I started to think, I go, wow. He didn't tell you why. He just told you that's what you use in muddy water, that's what you use in clear water. And guys like Jay Yellis, I would talk to him about spinnerbaits, and of course Van Dam and a few others. But spinnerbaiting is kind of like a lost art. For what we're doing now, I would prefer to have like a 7-foot or even longer, or slightly longer, 7.2, even 7.4, so I could really launch these spinnerbaits and then yank fish out of the water, from a long distance, get them back into the boat. But generally speaking, a 610 I can do that with, but I can also make shorter casts with it when I'm like target fishing, when I'm really fishing wood and stuff like that. But right now for open grass fishing, you could go to a longer one. For line, I generally like fluorocarbon. That's if they're slamming it and I'm getting good bites. Sometimes I will go to a softer, more stretchier line, like Gamma Copoly. But Gamma Fluorocarbon, Gamma Edge is the line I usually use. I start off early in the year when there's not a lot of cover. I'll use 12 or 10 or 12 pound test, and then I go 12, 14, 16. There's one there. I'll go 12, 14, or 16 when I start to fish around heavier grass cover. That way I can, use a little bit more force pulling fish out of grass cover. Hi there. And the power poles for me are huge when I'm fishing grass, because I could be real quiet. I'm not running my trolling motor. I'm not running my electronics. I'm able to cover areas thoroughly. If I get a bite, I know exactly where that was. Easy for me to hit that. If I'm moving down a shoreline or moving out in the middle of a grass bed and I get a bite and miss it, it's kind of hard to know exactly where I was because the boat's moving. And when you got power poles, you got that stealth, and then you got that ability to be there. It's almost like fishing on a pier, where you're able to lock into a little spot and be able to really fish it thoroughly. Something else too, when you're throwing any moving bait, I like to start off, especially in shallow water, I like to start off with the rod tip up, get a feel, like I feel the grass there and I'm popping it off of the grass. And then as the water gets a little bit deeper, as it starts to come back closer to the boat, I'll lower the rod a little bit to keep that bait down a little bit and a little bit deeper, so I can stay in contact with the grass or whatever cover I'm fishing. And that's the other thing a spinnerbait can do. It can tell you what you're fishing. It can tell you where the grass is, how thick it is. See, that's just a little strand wrapped around there. So I'm going to grab the smaller one, the 1/4 ounce. This is 3/8 size. Go back to the 1/4 here for just a second. And I do like faster reels for spinnerbaits, because a lot of times you have to catch up to the fish. A little bit of grass. The way I get a lot of it off, I just hold on to the rod and snap it like that. Try over here. I can also, when I'm fishing grass, I don't have to make really long casts like I would in clear water. And it's sometimes a little more advantageous to make a little shorter cast, because it's easier to snap that bait out of the grass and to keep it over the grass. When you make a long cast, it's kind of hard to keep that bait up out of that grass. But as soon as it hits the water, I get that thing moving. If you notice too, that once I get the bait to a certain point, I burn that sucker back in to make another cast. I don't care what you're fishing. If you want to catch more fish, make more casts. That'll help you. And more productive casts. So the productive part of this cast is usually the first 15, 20 feet. And when it gets about maybe 20, 30 feet from the boat, I burn it back in and make another cast. I think with Mann's being out of business, Hank Parker has started selling these spinnerbaits. So he was the one who kind of made them famous, and kind of worked with Mann's in designing the one that they made for all those years, and I guess he's doing it now. I like the head on it too. In addition to the wire, and the wire is so thin they can't put an R bend, so they put a twist on it. So you got to watch and make sure your line doesn't get tangled in that, because a couple times doing that it'll nick it and you'll have a weak spot. But I like the head design. The head is like a keel, and especially when I'm fishing wood or slow rolling it on the bottom, if it hits cover, it just sort of deflects, and then it centers itself almost right away. I mean, so it has that deflection, and then returning to its position that it started in, and that'll trigger some bites. Very true running spinnerbait. The components, the swivel, the blades, the hook, everything on the Mann's or Hank Parker spinnerbait is top notch. And I usually make my own skirts. They come with decent skirts, but after a while I like to put my own. And what I'll do when I put my own skirt on, I put it on with a rubber collar, and then right above the rubber collar, between the rubber collar and the head of the bait, right above it, I will wrap some wire around it. I use craft wire, and I wrap it around it because when those rubber collars, they don't necessarily come off as much as they just expand with rot. They will get loose, and when they get loose, your spinnerbait skirts get all out of whack, and then you have to keep trimming them, and then they fall off, and you've been catching fish on a certain spinnerbait, and then all of a sudden you go, oh no, I don't have that one anymore. My skirt's all gone. Well, my skirts last. I never have to replace them. I put that wire on there, and you'll see that a lot of your high-end spinnerbaits have wire on them. I think War Eagle comes with it that way. It takes a little bit extra time, a little extra labor to do that, but it surely makes a difference when you're fishing a spinnerbait all day, especially around grass where you're having to snap the thing out of grass. You could, snap that skirt and it starts to come apart. Which brings us to the next thing. I like to start off with a longer skirt. When I say longer, a 1/2 inch below the hook. And if that bigger profile, especially in muddy water, I think is a good thing. Now, if I start getting short strikes or fish just not really getting the hook in them, then I'll cut the skirt a little bit shorter each time. I carry scissors. Part of my arsenal when I'm fishing spinnerbaits is to carry scissors. They're right there on the bow in my little holder. They're there, and I will adjust the skirts. I will trim them, and I do it old-fashioned way. I just hold it, pull it down with my fingers like I'm cutting hair, and just cut the bottoms of them off. I've seen some guys cut them with the skirt down or up the bait, kind of where the head is, and that'll work too, but I just do it the old school ways. Now see how that line is underneath there? It's already kinked it, so this will require retying, and you can see it right there where it's kind of underneath that twist. There's one. You gotta get him out of that wood. Kind of a nice fishy there. "12-inch fish, we'll take that. Wish they were a little bigger. Always liked them bigger. No matter how big they are, it's like, gosh, I wish it was a little bit bigger." And when you have high, muddy water, fish tend to move to shallower water. They'll move up onto the bank. A lot of times it brings out new food, but it's also shallow. And these are fish, a lot of guys will say, yeah, the fish were there. Well, these are fish that you can catch. You can't catch the fish that are deep right now, and there are some fish that are deep. It's hard to catch them because they can't see anything. They're just kind of hunkered down waiting for things to clear up. But the ones that are up shallow, they're eating, and they can be caught. You can catch them with a variety of baits. And we'll just catch him with a spinnerbait today. Coming right between two of them, and there he is. That's a better fish. I came right between those two stick-ups. We're going to land him, because if we try to swing him, we're going to bend up my pretty little spinnerbait, and we don't want to do that. He's not huge, but you know, he's big enough where I don't want to bend up my spinnerbait too much. Another 13-incher. There are days when you're begging, oh, if I had one more 12-inch fish, just one more. I just need one more for a limit, so I won't be embarrassed. So I could say, I caught a limit. But the spinnerbait's a little bit out of kilter here. Okay. Oh, there's one there. That's a better fish. There we go. That's the kind we want. We want 50 of these. Yeah, that's a better fish. Take this all day. Oh, there's one. That felt like a trout, though. No, it's a little bass. That's why. They stock this lake with trout. That's why we get some big bass in here. I mean, it's not uncommon to catch a 5, one that pushes 10 out here, because those fish they're eating good. Right at the edge of that grass. Right at the edge of the grass. This one here, I would bet is, gosh, that would be one of those fish that would break your heart. I'm going to measure him because he looks like he could be 12 inches. Let's see here. He is, well, believe it or not, he's almost 13 inches. Those ones break your heart, though. You get those 11 3/4 inch fish. And then you bring it to the weigh-in anyway, hoping it grows 1/4 inch. I see guys that would do that, and the guy who's like measuring the fish, the weight master or whatever you call him, he'd weigh those, go to measure those fish, and you go like, man, you're 1/4 inch short. And his buddy goes, yeah, he's been 1/4 inch short all day long sitting in that live well. But I thought I'd bring him in anyway. So edges, grass edges. There's an edge. that you can see, and then there's an edge that you can't see, and that's where electronics kind of help. And that edge changes, well, practically daily. This grass continues to grow. It'll grow. Heck, it's still early in the year. It's mid-May and out here now, and post-spawn conditions, and the grass is starting to take off. It'll get slowed down a little bit because of this muddy water, but eventually this whole thing that we're fishing now is going to be frog and punching. That'll be the only thing that you can do out here. And that's fine. I don't mind doing that. I've done videos on frogging and punching, and you can check those out. Lots of good tips for you there. Again, these power poles. There's one there. The thing I've always loved about power poles is the ability to stop you so that you can really cover an area. Especially when this one's not 12 inches. I'm not going to show you. I'll show you his tail. How about his tail? All right, there's the fish. He's tiny. He's probably 10 inches. But again, I'll go back to, scenarios. I was fishing with Dave Lefebvre before I had power poles. I thought they were a luxury, Oh yeah, who needs that? I got a trolling motor. I don't need power poles. So we're going down a grass edge, and I had one boil up on a swim jig. And I said, I just had one. Man, he hit those power poles. It stopped us, dropped us back about a foot, and I could make the exact same cast, and I caught that fish. Never would have been able to do that out there in the middle of a huge grass flat, not knowing exactly where I was. But those power poles, it's like slamming the brakes and backing you up a little bit. As those things hit the bottom and just stopped us and pulled us back, and I made the same cast, same angle, and was able to catch them. So love power poles. I've been fishing with them so long, I can't imagine fishing without power poles. Docking, launching, fishing grass, fishing docks, anything where I want to be stationary and quiet, stealthy. There's no reason to have electronics on. There's no reason to be using my trolling motor. I mean, it's probably the most used piece of gear when I'm fishing grass beds. My power pole is the most used piece of gear that I have. I also try to point the rod at the bait when I can, because it gives me three options for a hook set. I can come straight up, I can go to the right, I can go to the left. Same thing when I have the rod down in front of me. I have it like straight ahead of me, so I can set the hook left, right, or straight up. And again, that's why I like a faster reel, because a lot of times they'll put slack in this. They'll hit it and put 2 feet of slack and a couple of turns of the reel, and 21 inches, and boom, you're caught up. And you can set the hook. And setting the hook on these things, it's like when they stop it, all you have to do is just keep reeling and snap the rod back a little bit. You don't want to go too far, because it'll put a bow in your rod, and then when it straightens out, spinnerbait hooks are big hooks, and they will put a hole in the fish's mouth a lot of times. If you hook them in the side of the mouth especially, and that hook will drop out if you have any slack at all in there. So you want to keep these fish down if you hook them. A lot of guys have asked me about different colored skirts. White and chartreuse, and then maybe fire tiger. So white is these kind of conditions. White and chartreuse, a little bit more sunlight, because then the chartreuse will show up with a little bit more sunlight. Fire tiger is when the water's pretty dang clear. And I'm using double willows. There's one there. It's a better fish. Yeah, better fish. Not a giant, but he's a good fish. There we go. Nice little bass, little post spawn. You can see its belly sunken in. This one might have been a spawner. Tail's a little bit split up. All right, go back. But that fire tiger skirt, I will throw on double willows, and most of the time they're both nickel. And most of the time I'm throwing it on a 7-foot rod, and most of the time I am burning it. I love to throw that on a day where it got some wind. You've got you've got cloudy skies, and you're fairly close to the fish. So I'm talking like a couple feet, 3 feet deep, and you're right over the grass. And I will burn that thing, and they can see it. I mean, they're higher up. When that water is clear like that, they are higher up in that grass. And when you come burning that thing over the top, they will just pounce on it. But those are the 3 colors that I usually use. I've tried a bunch of other ones, and I've caught fish on them, but it's like, why? You know, I don't think it makes a difference. I know there's some guys that will match the hatch and say, oh, you know, and yeah, and I like them with a couple strands of blue in them. You know, that doesn't hurt. You know, it's a color they key on from herring and shad and that kind of thing. Sometimes I'll throw black with a little chartreuse. I think that's a pretty cool color, but for the most part, white, and that's probably 90% of the time. And then white and chartreuse probably the remaining 9% of the time, and then that 1% of the time when I've got those conditions where I've got clear water, I'll throw a double nickel willow, and a pretty good size bait too, 3/8 ounce, and the fire tiger skirt. I think that for some reason whatever they are feeding on, they can see. I mean, orange, green, white, it's all mixed up in there, and tend to get a lot of fish that way. Another nice one here. It's a decent fish, about a 14-inch fish, 14.5-inch fish.
That's a pretty good day on the water. We got a chance to see how to use spinnerbaits, see how to catch fish with spinnerbaits, and some of the reasons behind them, including tuning the bait, rod position, line tackle, and the conditions that we were looking at. Now, I want to go over some of the baits that we were using. We were using the 1/4 ounce, and I'll show you the comparison. This is a 1/4 ounce, and this is a 1/2 ounce. You can see the heads are different. One of the things I liked about this bait is the shape of the head. We talked about it in the video, but we really didn't get the chance to show you. It's kind of a rounded head, and it really deflects off cover really, really well. The one that we used mostly today was the 3/8 ounce, and again, I'll compare that to the 1/2 ounce. You can see it's just a little bit different. We've got 2 baits that are similar, but the head size makes it heavier to go a little bit deeper. And I touched on the time that I'll throw a double willow and I'll throw a fire tiger. And again, that's this guy right here, double willow, fire tiger. I like a big bait, and I'm gonna burn this sucker when I have crystal clear water. So if you have thought about throwing spinnerbaits, hopefully some of this has helped. If not, go ahead and send me a private message. I'll be more than happy to chat with you about it. But I really do like spinnerbaits when I get the 4 C's. And don't forget them. There's cloudy skies, choppy water, cloudy water, and close to the fish. I'm Captain Steve Chaconis. Please subscribe and share this video. Thank you.